Hello, I'm Jared Taylor with American Renaissance. If you like this video, I hope you'll send the link to a lot of your friends. As of today, November 6th, the election is still up in the air. There are charges of vote fraud, and it looks like there'll be lawsuits. But in the end, I suspect Joe Biden will be the next president. How did that happen? What does it mean? Well, first of all, even if he loses, the election was by no means a repudiation of Donald Trump. Nearly 70 million Americans voted for him. 70 million Americans voted for a man our rulers hate. 70 million Americans voted for a man that big media and universities told us was a racist, a fascist, and every other name they could think of. Big tech shamelessly suppressed people and groups that supported Donald Trump. And as Forbes noted, Biden trounced Trump in final tally of major newspaper endorsements, 47-7. Even publications that never endorsed candidates, Scientific American and the New England Journal of Medicine, told their readers to vote Biden. 70 million Americans said, get lost. That's 7 million more than voted for Trump in 2016. That's a huge number of Americans who refuse to do what they are told. But Joe Biden won close to 73 million votes. Voter turnout at nearly 67% was the highest in 100 years, probably because the country is more divided than at any time in the last 100 years. So how did the different races vote? The first column is the racial percentage of the electorate, with whites still way ahead of any other race at 65%. The next column is the percentage of each race that Trump won. Then, what share that was of his total vote. Next, we have the same information for Biden. Trump won a majority of the white vote, 57%, but that's not a crushing majority. If you move to the next column, you see that whites were 80.6% of his total vote. His next biggest group of supporters were Hispanics, who gave him 9% of his support. Look at the next to last column. Biden won just 42% of the white vote, but as you can see in the next column, it was still a majority of his total vote, 53.8%. Biden also won a majority of every non-white group, 87% of blacks, 66% of Hispanics, and 63% of Asians. But even a Democrat has got to win a good many white votes because whites are still 65% of the electorate. What would be the smallest percentage of whites a Democrat could win and still get a majority of the popular vote? If a Democrat won every single non-white vote, that would give him 35% of the total. He would still need 23% of the white vote to get a majority. Another way to put this is that if a Republican got 77% of the white vote, he'd have a majority without even one non-white vote. That would be complete racial polarization, and we're not there yet. In fact, this year, the racial divide became a little less sharp than 4 years ago. A slightly smaller percentage of whites voted for Trump this time, and so did a slightly larger percentage of non-whites. Here are early exit poll data with graphs that compare the vote in 2020 with the vote in 2016. And frankly, I'm surprised by these results. Look at the graph in the upper left for white men. It tells us that in 2016, Trump was 31% of Hillary Clinton with white men, but this year, he was ahead by only 18%. Trump lost support among white men. As you can see in the graph for white women, Trump increased his lead with them, but not by as much as he lost white men. From the other graphs, you can tell that although Trump lost non-white votes by a huge margin, he did better this time with both sexes of both blacks and Hispanics. Look at the graph for Latino men in the lower right. 37.5% of Hispanic men voted for Donald Trump this year, up from 34.5% 4 years ago. Donald Trump's 32% share of the total Hispanic vote was more than the 31% John McCain got, and better than Mitt Romney's 27%. Asians also slightly increased their vote for Trump. For 4 years, the media have been telling us that there's a white supremacist in the White House. I'm sure that scared off a few white voters, but why were more non-whites more likely to vote for him? Whatever their reasons, the current estimate is that Donald Trump, with 25% of the non-white vote, got a greater percentage than any Republican since Richard Nixon in 1960, who got 31% of non-whites. Another surprising result: Trump lost support among people 65 and older, a group that's overwhelmingly white. In 2016, he won that group by 7%, this time by just 3%. Maybe they blamed him for the coronavirus, just as the media told them to. Something else worth noting: this was by far the most expensive federal election ever. Here is a graph of spending for Congress and for the president for the last 4 elections. Blue is Democrat, red is Republican. Look at the huge bar at the top for 2020. Some people think the final figure is going to hit $14 billion in spending, but it will easily be twice what the candidates spent in 2016. And Democrats outspent Republicans nearly 2 to 1. In 2012 and 2016, the spending was pretty evenly balanced between the two parties. It used to be that the Republicans were the party of rich people and big business, and Democrats were for the little guy. That meant Democrats had less campaign money to spend. Well, not anymore. Who do you think billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg supported? We have what must be one of the weirdest ruling classes in the world. Billionaires who support the party of socialism. And of course, the party of blacks, Hispanics, illegal immigrants, felons, and people who have changed sex. Here are hard money contributions from various industries. Look at the top line. Even Wall Street gave a lot more money to Democrats than to Republicans. And lawyers who make good money, they went crazy for Democrats. Halfway down, look at civil servants. Those are the people that you could call the deep state. They are overwhelmingly Democrat. Real estate is the only industry that gave slightly more money to Republicans. And what did the candidates spend that $14 billion on? TV, video ads. And Biden spent twice as much as Trump. I've always thought it was a sorry commentary on the intelligence of voters that you can win an election by filling screens over and over with a few minutes of flickering foolishness. If that's how you choose whom you want for president, you're a dunce. So, what would a Biden-Harris administration mean for white people? Joe Biden promises to root out systemic racism. Well, what the heck is that anyway? As you can see from this graph of Google Trends over time, just about no one had even heard of systemic racism until the week of May 31st to June 6th. That was the week after George Floyd died in Minneapolis. Joe Biden has promised to root out something the country had never even heard of until just a few months ago. Systemic racism is supposed to be what we're left with when we can't find nearly enough living, breathing white racists to explain why black and Hispanics do so poorly. The system is somehow doing it on their own, no matter what white people think or do. The woman likely to be the new VP, Kamala Harris, kindly explains it all in just 40 seconds.
So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests, oh, everyone should get the same amount. The problem with that, not everybody's starting out from the same place. So if we're all getting the same amount, but you started out back there and I started out over here, we can get the same amount, but you're still gonna be that far back behind me. It's about giving people the resources and the support they need so that everyone can be on equal footing and then compete on equal footing. Equitable treatment means we all end up at the same place.
equal opportunity, ropes of equal length, that's not enough. Equitable treatment means we all end up at the same place. Note that the white man wasn't doing anything particularly bad to the dark man, but systemic racism somehow put him out of reach of that rope. And the solution is to raise the level of the earth, re-engineer the entire landscape so that he can get to the top of the mountain. This is a remarkably honest video. We are all supposed to end up in the same place. And equitable treatment means any amount of unequal treatment to make that happen. This has been tried before. It's called communism. And it was awful. But this has a new wrinkle. Instead of workers against capitalists, it's everybody else against white people. You are going to pay to move the level of the earth. You and your children will suffer from open discrimination in the name of what Kamala Harris calls equity. And I'll end with a prediction. Our rulers are shocked that Donald Trump even came this close. They have got to do something about those 70 million incorrigibles. They'll do it by making it harder than ever to find videos like this one or dissident websites like Amran.com. But don't worry, we'll keep telling the truth and more people will keep waking up. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this video channel. Also, I invite you to visit Amran.com, AMREN.com. You'll find podcasts, videos, lively discussions, articles that I think will interest you a great deal. Again, thanks so much for watching.